I'd like to call the meeting of the Maple Run Unified School District Board of Directors to order for January 8th, 2025. Happy New Year. It's 6 p.m. The location of the meeting is at St. Albans City School. First item on the agenda is the agenda review. And the first thing I'd like to do is move item 8A, which is draft number 3 of the budget, to after the Pledge of Allegiance, but before the community forum, so that if there are community members that come that wish to ask questions related to the budget, there'll be an opportunity for those to do that. Are there any objections to that? Okay, good. Okay, please join me for allegiance to the flag. I should state that previously that the agenda is accepted with that change. Thank you. Okay, pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. So I'm just trying to get a sense of the room and find out how many general public is here. Can we tell if there are people in the gallery area?
Why don't you say we have one person that.
Looks like we have 2 community members and 4 staff members, Nilda.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. So I am going to go with draft number 3 of the budget. I think Bill has a short presentation, and he and Bree will help us work our way through draft number 3. So I'm going to turn it over to Bill.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Nilda. I don't know. I'll just say for the cameraman, you'll be going back and forth between Bree and I. I don't know if I sit next to Bree, if that'll make it easier for you, but maybe it will. Just because I know how we did the slides, and so he's going to be making everyone in TV land. Dizzy. So I'm not sitting Bree. This is a chair right here.
Thank you for doing that, Bill.
Yeah, it makes it a little easier probably not to have the camera going back and forth, and also since these get recorded and watched, it'll help them as well. So thank you all. Some of you, for the staff and administrators, you've seen this the past few days. We've been out doing this presentation to the staff since Monday in all the buildings. NCTC has not seen it yet. There was a scheduling snafu that one didn't occur yet, but they are scheduled to happen. So I want to, if we can go to the next slide, John. There. So what we want to do is give some context for the budget. The direction that you gave us at the last meeting. Go review the expenditure and revenue budget. What are some of the biggest changes in the budget? And what's causing the overall change in the budget? And then next steps. And talk to you about a quandary that we're dealing with that's become more apparent really right before the last time we were meeting about the budget at draft 2, but that's with students. And driving is probably one of our big cost drivers within the system. So, and we've been out there talking about this with teachers as well, and we've already gotten some good suggestions of probably minor alterations. One of the things I'd like to say to all of you, I think I said it last time, is that to change the budget by 1% is $800,000, and to change a penny on the tax rate is $400,000. Those are rules of thumb, so it's not, think that there's some plus minus in there, but that's roughly what it takes to change. If you want to change the tax rate by a penny, it's about $400,000. It's about $800,000 to change a percentage on the tax rate. So, if we can go to the next one, John. So I've gone over these before, so I think we'll do this one quickly. Just as we've talked about before, the budget is the story of what we're doing in the district, and these are the district goals that were adopted 2 years ago, and a strategic plan pointed towards that. I'm not going to go through reading all those. I've said those quite a few times before, so we'll go right to the next one, John. this kind of happened at the last meeting. I saw it, and I think it's a really good, you know, it's last time you had Jason Therian and John Muldoon and Alexis present data about the district. And I want to remind us from the last meeting, it really kind of stuck with me, and I've been using it in community meetings when I've gone out and met with the community, about how well our district is improving and how fast it is. And so, while we're not to where we want to be, when you compare last year's fall with this year's fall, and we went over that last time, we are making improvements. And that behavior data that we looked at last time is really, the day after the meeting, Martin and I sat down and did some really drill down in the data that we'll look at the end of this meeting, which is really talking about some of the drivers for our work and what's happening for students. So I would have you look at that behavior data, especially the 4 majors or less that Alexis, you talked about at the last meeting, being that, you know, we have a new way of looking at it. 96% of our kids are meeting our goal of 4 majors or less, and 91 overall the whole last year. So a great deal of our students are meeting our behavioral expectations. We know that that's been our target and our district-wide objective. So if we go to the next slide, the one for me is these growth rates. While we would like to see a lot more success than where we're at, for both literacy and math, we're at or a little above the national average for students on grade level. We would like to see that a lot higher than it is, and that the growth rates that we've seen in attendance, I think that's the one that surprises people the most, because we live it every day and we don't see the improvement of attendance, but that 35% in the past 3 years. We'd like that to be higher, and we know that that's one of the key indicators for learning. The more that we can have kids in school, the better that we're going to have for student performance. So I am doing this kind of quick. For those of you that weren't here at the last meeting, glad to give you some more input on that, but the majority of folks have seen this, so I kind of went quick. I also put up here in this presentation. Oh, okay, so I got to read whole 2. Thanks. Thanks, Stacy. Stacy, you always take care of me. Yeah, you do a great job.
Yes.
So this is the budget timeline. I remember being in this room the night after the budget vote that was successful and the board really said, hey, you need to start working on FY26 right away. And so we took that to heart as a leadership team, started looking at how we organize and develop a budget and look at the resources we're giving to each building by a district overall viewpoint. So the leadership team's been working a lot on that. We've probably put 1/3 of our meetings into that this year. And the rest of it is what you know as a board. And December 4th, we brought you a level service budget at a little under 5%. The last draft for level service was 4.02. This board, after you had much deliberation on that at SATEC last month, you asked us to bring this next version back at 2% because we had about 2% of open positions, knowing that not necessarily every open position was the place that we would say would be reduced in the budget. And we'll talk more about that later on. So, John, I think we can go on to the next one. So your direction was to have us bring 2%, and we can go on from that. And then, so in the assumption, this is the assumption budget that you approved for if we didn't have actual figures for energy or insurance or supplies, materials, general transportation, that got put into this budget. And then I'm gonna hand this over to Bree to go over what is in the numbers in draft 3.
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. So in draft 3, we have reduced the budget down to $77,757,499, which is a 2% increase over last year's budget. With us having an education spending of $58,751,223, giving us about $19 million in revenue from local sources that we know that we are going to get. Currently, our estimated long-term weighted ADM is 3,914.83 students. This number is an estimate, and it is bound to change again, which then brings our estimated per pupil spending to $15,007 per pupil, which is 5.11% increase over last year's numbers. And then down below is just a breakdown of the budget based on wages, health insurance, employee benefits, contracted services, tuition, transportation, property services, supplies and equipment, and other dues and fees, which then comes out to that breakdown number of $77,757,499. And moving on, this is just a breakdown of all of the proposed budget broken out into each of the different account lines that is proposed for FY26. You'll see that, I don't have it here on this slide, sorry about that, the difference between the previous budget to this budget of the reductions in each of the lines. But later on in the slideshow, we will be showing the areas that are being cut in here. Should I keep going?
Yeah, you're doing good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So moving on to the special education and NCTC, there wasn't much of a difference in cuts for these areas. There were some special ed, but the Northwest Career and Technical Center didn't see any cuts from the from the last budget that was given in December to this budget here. And then if we keep going, on the budget revenues, you'll see that there's a better estimation of the items that we have received from the state of Vermont of what is going to be, or numbers that we know for revenues. So there's a few more X's, but there are still some numbers we're estimating and we don't know what they will be, but it's a best guess estimate for these numbers.
Okay, so in these pie charts, these are the similar, and I should have said this at the beginning, we're staying with the similar format of the presentation that we did last time, but just trying to update it with numbers, and then there's a couple more slides added at the end. On the right-hand side, on the left-hand side, you saw this before. The percent of the budget that makes up the three major areas of Northwest Technical Center, special education, regular education. So about 70% of our budget pays for regular education, about 25% of our budget pays for special education, and about 5% pays for technical education. And then what you'll see on the right-hand side, there's a change in this 2% budget. It's about a $2.5 million increase. You'll see which of these three areas and the percentage into that $2.5 million increase. About 50% of the budget increase is coming from regular education, about 35% of the increase is coming from special education, and about 15% is coming from the Northwest Career and Technical Center's budget. So of that $2.5 million increase. If we look at that increase a little bit more detail to one of the charts that Bree had at the bottom of the first chart that she explained about tax rates, about taxes. You'll see there's about $760,000 for salary increases overall. There's about $900,000 for health insurance overall. There's about another $67,000 in other benefits. So if we look at all of these together, it's about 77% of the budget is for human resources, which makes about sense. When we're a business about humans working with each other or human endeavor, so we know for the best practice education, we need people to do that. We're a people-oriented business. So that's almost in a direct alignment with what the percentage of the budget pays for human resources. So it's about a percentage or two off, but that's where the increases are. You'll see there's a 3% increase due to contracted services, and then there's $437,000 that's for tuition, transportation, and property services. But as you'll see later in detail, most of that's coming from tuition costs for out-of-district placements. We'll see that these increases in that line, in that area, are offset by about $309,000 of savings in bond payments, supplies, and equipment. You'll see later on that the bond is sunsetting for this building. We're paying it off this year, and so that's a $244,000 savings. So as we go to the next slide, the biggest areas of increases are direct instruction under regular education. That's our biggest line in the whole budget as well. As a line, it's around $20 million. So the dollar increase is $676,561, but the percentage is only 3.1. We have a negotiated agreement for next fiscal year for salaries for teachers, which is at 4%, and we know the healthcare was at 12%. So when you take, when I kind of think about those together, I would expect to see something, if it were the exact same people, in the exact same construction of that line, we'd move some people around to, positions around, I should say, that it would be somewhere between 5 and 6%, okay? Then we look at 3 from special education, student supports, which is student support related like OT, PT, other support services for students. That's going up about 25%. That's going up $600,000. Our out-of-district placement is going up almost 23% at $415,000. And our student transportation for special education, which services kids for when they need to go to out-of-district placements or to other related services, is going up almost 70% at $300,000. Then we get back to curriculum instructional services, and this is one of the things that Brienne's been about, is about really making sure we have things coded in the right place. And we have moved all the instructional coaches. Some of them in this current year are in direct instruction, and they've been moved out to curriculum and instruction, because you as a board have talked to me about return on investment. So we've got to have the budget match the areas in which it's happening. And so Bree caught this with 3.5 FTEs, and so they got moved out direct instruction into curriculum and instructional services. Guidance and support is a little under 200,000, but again, it's much below that 5-6% window. It's at 3. And operations and maintenance was up 153, but still, again, it's much lower than what we would expect because of the HR costs. If I go to the next slide, you'll see the biggest areas of decrease. Special education, you'll see direct instruction. We have many, as we talked about in the positions that weren't filled, many of those were in the special education area, whether they were an ESP support person or a special education teacher or a special ed building administrator. And so those positions have been eliminated, and you see that here. That's down almost 8.5%. You see the long-term debt from this building, this bond going away. District operations, which is central office plus other centralized services across the district, is going down 9%. Psychological services, we had in the budget this current year 3 psychologists, and we've been able to use a special educator to help with testing, so we only need 2 psychologists. And correct me if I'm wrong, Bree, but handbook 2, we have to have that special ed teacher, because it's a teacher in direct instruction, not in psychological services. So we have to follow all the what's called handbook 2 in Vermont for the way of accounting happens for education. And then office of the principal, you'll see those are down a little under 2%, and technology services around 2%. Oh, and I skipped over student transportation. It's just tightening up from what we've actually used to what we had budgeted. Okay. I'm going to hand this back over to Bree to go over taxes.
Okay, so we're repeating a little bit of the information again. So the budget expense is $77,757,499. Subtracting out the local revenue that we are expecting is $19,006,276, which gives us education spending that we have to ask for from the AOE is $58,751,223. Again, our equalized pupil is 3,914.83, and our long-term estimated tax rate is 15,007, which also our yield rate is 8,553. So again, all of this information is pretty much duplicated, but bringing it down a little bit more is the tax rates and what the tax rates will look like. So with us having the budget of the $77,757,499, the St. Albans City will have an adjusted tax rate of 2.2355, which is an increase of 2.8 cents. And then St. Albans Town would have an adjusted tax rate of 1.8509, which is 8.99 cents. And Fairfield would see an estimated adjusted tax rate of 1.2384, and they would see a 5.58 cent reduction in the budget. And then down below is the estimated annual impact, and there are many things that are factored in to this. So this is just a very high estimate, as if somebody wasn't getting the sensitized household adjustment. In the city, somebody would see just a $28.02 increase on their tax bill if their house was valued at $100,000. $2 or $28.02 increase over last year's taxes. Sorry. And then same thing for the town would be $89.86, and then Fairfield would then see a decrease in their taxes of $55.80. And then down below, I have it listed out again, is the personnel wages, the health insurance, contracted services, tuition, dues and fees, all of that broken out again as a duplication of this.
Can I ask a question? Absolutely. Can you explain, 'cause I know the board understands it, but you went through like the budget expense, local revenue, education expense, equalizing people. I don't think everybody understands what each of those mean.
Okay.
If you can explain what those are.
Absolutely. Do you want me to start from the first one?
Yeah, 'cause I think,
Okay.
yeah, just so you understand why we're paying for each line, or why they're.
Absolutely. Okay, so the budget expense, that's just the total budget that we have put together for everybody. The local revenue is money that is coming from outside agencies. So this could be outside grants. For instance, we have school-wide programs and 21st Century. So money like that, or donations that we receive, interest from our checking account, those are all different revenue sources that we receive that we don't have to ask taxpayers to borrow from. So then if you take the budget expense minus that local revenue, it comes out to the education spending, and that amount is the amount we need from the Agency of Education. So that's all of our tax dollars pooled together. It all goes to the AOE, and then the AOE then takes that money and distributes it to each of the schools or each of the districts around the state of Vermont. Our equalized pupil number, so that is a number, it's our student numbers, but then all of our students have weight factors attached to each of them. So preschool, unfortunately, has a negative weight factor to them. Once you get into 5th grade.
Yep, middle school.
Middle school, you start getting more of a weight factor. High school gets an even more weight factor. English language learners receive a higher weight factor. Free and reduced lunch students who qualify for it will receive a higher weight factor.
You got it all.
I got it, okay. So that's how we get to the number. So we have 2,600 students.
Approximately.
Around 2,600. So with all of our students, plus the weight factors that they have attached to them, it then inflates our equalized pupil number to this 3,914.83. So that number, the 3,914.83, divided by our education spending, comes out to our long-term tax.
That's your education spending per long-term weighted.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's okay. It's not easy.
It's a mouthful. So it comes out to that 15,007. So it's each student or each equalized long-term student costs $15,007 to educate. And then the yield rate, that is a rate that comes from the Agency of Education. This rate is set, but it is also an estimated number that is bound to change. But then having that number, so having the equalized pupil Is it divided by?
Yeah, it's divided.
Okay, divided by the 8,553, it comes out to the education tax rate of 1.7546. And I totally skipped over this, but we have a tax relief of 0.0333 that the state of Vermont gave to some districts who qualified last year. So our new proposed education tax rate is 1.7213 with that. Then we take that proposed education tax rate and we multiply it by the city, town, and Fairfield's
It's actually a division by the CLA.
divided by the CLA, which that is what the town is assessed at, right?
Right, it's
Currently
common level
assessed.
appraisal.
Common level appraisal of what the town is currently assessed at. So you multiply the 77% by that 1.7213, and that's how you then come out to the adjusted tax rate.
It's actually a division, but you got it. You're close enough. It's complex when you have gone through this. Bree and I talk about this. Bree and I probably have been with each other more the past 2 months talking about this stuff than other work on it.
Yeah.
It's just helpful to understand why we're subtracting things out, where that money came from, and.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
When is the yield rate set for
So,
the school year?
I'll take that.
Okay.
Yeah, so the yield, what happens is the yield is estimated by the tax commissioner on December 1st. That's the number that you saw up there of 8,553. I know you know that, Mary Ann, but I'm doing that for other people to understand the context. The yield set is usually the last bill in the legislature, which happens in May. And so we take this estimate. I will tell you in general, and Jack, if you can think of any time that's different than what I'm about to say, because you've played with these, you've seen these numbers for many years. Usually this number is the most conservative estimate coming out December 1. Usually the legislature is above this. So that would actually lower tax rates. That's what happened. It's happened every year. This is my 13th year as a superintendent. I've seen it happen every year that way. The tax commissioner is the most conservative, and they usually land it. Because they get other data in that tells, okay, there's other revenues into the state education fund, or we have more information on the number of pupils, and that usually changes it. So I feel really safe that that's not gonna go down, and hopefully it will go up, but we like to use the most conservative number. Other questions on that? So John, if you could go forward one slide. So what's really important to understand is, you remember this, you asked us to bring forward you a 2% budget on spending, which is what you have in front of you. But because we have less long-term weighted average daily membership, the number of students at 3,900, because last year we were at 4,000, it is gonna cause an increase in education spending per pupil of 5.1%. And last year in Act 183, they brought back the requirement that the warning has to say exactly this with putting in the number, the budget amount, the percentage increase of spending per equalized pupil, and either choose higher or lower. I should have taken out lower before I created this slide. But that's what's on your draft warning tonight, and we've actually checked to see if we can add a sentence afterwards. Can we put anything else? We can't put anything. And this was like this for about 10 or 12 years in Vermont, and then got taken away 2 years ago, and it's now back. It is a downward pressure on education spending. So it is something that's there. I will also tell you something I was saying to the teachers as we talk about this. One of the big factors in that long-term weighted ADM is the weights that students get for certain things. And the most prominent weight is for students that English is a second language, but the second most prominent is free and reduced lunch. And they've changed the way during the pandemic, families could be put onto free and reduced lunch, and they didn't take them off until starting last spring. So this year is the first year, so almost every superintendent I've talked to is losing free and reduced student numbers. And it used to be that we had equalized, so like the total students in Vermont would never change. That's not true anymore. With what we have in this system, it can change. So we're all going down, we're all losing some. So that's affecting that 5.11%. I will tell you, I was saying this as well, if we had no cuts at at the 4.02 budget that we brought you last time, that number would go from 5.11 to 7.89. So there is quite a bit of, that's what the voters will see, and one of the questions I've asked the staff to help me think about is how do we easily explain that to the public? I ask that to you as the board as well, because it's very technical. John, I think we can go on to the next one. We brought you this slide last time. I just highlighted, we've updated the tax rates on the right-hand columns for Fairfield, city, and town, because they've changed a little bit. They change every day. What's under the cut areas has not changed since the last time, and all I did was highlight that this budget is at a 2% budget, which was 2% cuts. So I just highlighted this. Nothing else has changed except I will tell you a few decimal points on hundreds or thousands on the tax rates. So we can go on to the next one. And then you can keep going, John, because I'll come back to this input. I probably should have had end that. You can go past that. I told you, do we not have those slides? Do we not have these slides? Can John get those slides? Sorry, folks, I thought we had those last slides there for you.
So, Bill, can I comment while you're
Yes.
looking for those slides?
Yeah.
So when we reviewed this to prep for the meeting, I shared my frustration, right? Because I was such a strong proponent of a 2% increase and really wanted to advertise that 2% in this ballot language, although it's accurate, makes us look like we're not upfront with what's going on. Those of us that have just heard this presentation have a detailed understanding, such as it is. It's difficult, but the public's not going to get it, and it's going to look like a 5% increase, which is not good. So I appreciate that, Bill, you asked everybody for their input, because I think any idea, as crazy as it might be, that's legal, should be considered.
I agree. I mean, I think that's our biggest thing. I think one of the things that hurts us in education, especially in Vermont and budgeting, is that we get very technical about how we talk about budgets. And I appreciate what you said, Nkrumah, to say, can you please explain that? Because we want people to understand. But at the same time, Vermont's made such a complex funding system that people are, and I get it. I mean, it took me a long time to understand it, that you kind of, what? People wouldn't dream this stuff up. And so it sounds like you're trying to hide something. And that's the last thing I wanted to show, is we're trying to hide something. We're trying to be very transparent about what's happening. So, but that's where we are with that. You think I'll get it?
Just waiting for it to come in.
Okay, yeah, okay. So,
Bill,
yes.
we've been not in this specific place before, but we've been in the place where we've had to increase, several times
Right.
since consolidation, I'll
Yeah.
just even say. And I think that we have done an incredible job of educating people. And I think that we have created additional outlets to be able to do that. Even I'm thinking, now with your blog, right?
Right.
So I think that we have time
Yeah.
between now and the day that we vote, and we need to take advantage of that time and just put it out there. When you tell people that we have a 5% increase right now, you're gonna get people's attention. And so it gives us the opportunity to continue to educate people and just let them know that what was within our control, this is what we did. We were asked to do this, and we went ahead and did this, which was even more, right?
Right.
And then these are the things that are not within our control, and everybody understands that. I mean, I just got my health insurance, bill after things have changed, and my personal health insurance went up several $100s a month.
Yeah.
And it's not any one person's fault, it is the way it is.
And I agree with that. I want to make sure we have a really unified voice going out saying,
Absolutely.
this is where we're at, and this is what we try to do. And the board has the job, you have the job, it's swinging to you now from the administrators of deciding what's the best education the community can afford and is willing to pay for. And that's what you're trying to gauge. And that's part of setting this, what's going forward. Because I don't think there's anyone in this room that doesn't want to see a fully robust education system for Maple Run.
When I said education, I was specifically talking about us educating.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, but what I'm trying to say is I think
Yes.
we'd all like to have,
Of course.
not be doing anything for cuts. But at the same time, we have to say, what can the community afford? So John, yes, if you can go forward. I'm sorry about that, folks. Last time we told you about the behavioral data, and we did some digging. So of those, we said there's 4% of the kids that have 4 or more major incidences. That's 120 students. So when we looked at this, and I want to thank Martin, because you really helped me dig into this the next day. It's like, oh, let's dig into this. And we took an hour, after you spent many hours putting the data together, but an hour in my office. And so there were 120 students that have 4 or more behavior instances as of December. 4 fewer, thank you. Thank you, Alexis, 4 fewer. No, this is the more. This is the more. So 4 or more. This is I think the thing that made me the happiest, because we've been watching our behavioral data, and we've had more kids be in major instances that are BIPOC than our demographics. This is the first time, and it's from the beginning of school to December 1st, where our demographic data is matching our behavioral instances. So I was like, yes, we're hard work people have been doing on equity and inclusion and understanding where kids, like it's hitting there. So I was jumping for joy when I saw that one. If we look at those 100, of all the instances, and I don't remember the number of instances that were there, but 2 students represented 16% of the major instances. 2 kids of the 120. If we took 24 students, or 9% of the students that had major instances, these are the ones that had 20 or more major instances, they represented 60% of the instances. If we said, okay, then we went to 10 instances or more, that was 52 students that had 10 or more instances. They represented 80% of the major instances. These are the instances that you've heard from our team that's behind you tonight when they've come and talked to you last spring about when you have one of these, you've got hours of work of multiple people going in the building. Maybe a couple of days, depending on the incident. So these are highly intensive, highly resourced pieces. So 73 of the 120 students are on an IEP, and 4 have a 504 plan, okay? If you can go to the next. So this made me think about this question, and this is the question I'm asking. It's hard for you to read on here, I'm sorry, and we'll get you these 2 slides because they're not in the packet. But my question is this. Our most significant cost increases by percentages are in special education and out-of-district placement and transportation for out-of-district services. Our district behavior quantitative data shows that 96% this year, 91% last year, of our students meet our district goal of 4 or fewer major instances. So if a few students are taking more and more resources to provide education, which we must do, and I would add parenthetically, not only legally, but ethically. Like that's our job, that's public education. We provide education to all and everything they need to make that. Currently, we have 28 students outplaced, 12 on a waiting list, and 10 learning through an outside tutorials. The average cost for an outside placement is $100,000. And Andrea, would I be correct if I said about $20,000 to $25,000 average for transportation?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's say it's $125,000 for an outside placement on average. Then every time a student goes out, remember I told you back in November, the average cost for a certified position is $113,000. We're putting ourselves in the place of thinking of an outplacement versus a position. And I don't want to put it that bluntly, but we're having to ask that when we have limits on our budget, wherever that limit is. So my question is this. We after we looked at the budget last time and it was in there, and Bree and Andrea are the two that came up with it, we're paying for tutorial students to go to Lunaway, and it's about $600,000. We could build that program for much less and do it on grants, not on local budget. So we could, and we took that $600,000 out of the budget. It's not in this draft. I had some teachers at Fairfield on Monday say to me, Bill, what if you could, and I haven't even told you this, Andrea, I'm sorry. But they said, could we provide those tutorials outside of school hours so you could hire staff already so you don't have to pay any health benefits for them? I said, I don't know. But having these conversations with teachers, and Fairfield was the first, I had some good ones in this room today from some of the people sitting right across from me right now. And the way you ask questions of just like, hey, have you thought of this? And it's how can we solve this problem? And we're not the only ones in Vermont. When I talk to my colleagues, they're seeing the exact same problems. And John was talking to me about colleagues that he has in Massachusetts where they're having to tear apart the programs they've built because special ed is funded a different way, and it has to fund the special education for out-of-district cost placements before the in-district pieces. So, and if I talk to our partners at CBOEO, or I talk to our partners at Martha's Kitchen, or I talk to our partners at, is it Tim's House? We're having some very severe cases really draw a lot of resources across social services, not just in education. I'm sure if we talk to our partners at DCF, they'd say the same thing. This is the societal problem that we see, and this is how it's impacting education. So I'm looking for any ideas to help us through this.
Bill, in the session that we had the other night, person mentioned that, Bree, what's the total increase in dollars?
2%.
No, money.
Oh, money,
This is like 2 million?
2.5.
2.5 million? It was pointed out that 900,000 of that 2.5 billion is healthcare. And if you think of it, the schools in Vermont are subsidizing the health insurance companies. I mean, that's kind of what it looks like. I mean, 900,000 of the increase is health benefits. And we have no control over that. The state has approved that company, and we're stuck with that. And that's an amazing thing. 900,000 out of our 2.5 billion is health costs, benefits. That's just an amazing thing to me, and the person that pointed that out is related to me, so.
Sorry, Jack, it's 1.5 million increase. That was my mistake, I told you that.
Oh, 1 point.
It's 1.5 for you.
Yeah.
That makes it worse.
Yeah.
900,000 of the 1.5 million.
I want to check that 900,000 figure from what you saw on Monday night, what I had up here.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm looking at something, I may not have got transferred right into that pie chart.
okay.
All right, but there's
Well, I
a
bet it's
significant
close.
piece of it.
I bet it's a significant thing.
Yeah.
If it's not quite that, if that's,
Yeah.
turns out to be changed, but
The health insurance is about $700,000 increase over last year.
okay, well, that's still, you
Still
know,
half of
that's-
it.
That's
Right.
close to half,
Yeah, close to half.
you know. So anyway, that kind of shocked all of us when Mike pointed that out, because we were looking at all these numbers, and of course, his daily job is to look at numbers like that. And thank God he takes after his mother. And, you know, he caught that. And that's an amazing thing.
Yeah. I will have to say, one of the things I want to correct that's in this presentation is that pie chart that shows the human pieces and has the numbers. I have some numbers off on there. And I was just seeing it, looking at another figure. That's why I was giving you those
Right,
corrections.
well, that's because
This right here.
the
Okay.
complexity of the formula causes those kinds of shifts. Almost every day you get a new number from some source and it changes the picture. But overall, I want to commend our superintendent for going to many, many meetings explaining this budget process, along with Bree and others who have, done all this work. And the community should realize that we're going way out of our way to make sure people understand. And it's our job to do that, but I think this year we've been, it is a 2% increase. And I realize we have to, on the ballot, put that 5.11, but that's because of weighted students. And I would like to point out that the Agency of Ed mandated the weighted students, and the Agency of Ed is under the governor's control. He could have told them not to do that, and that would have changed the budgets in all the school systems. So we need to understand the Agency of Ed is no longer the Department of Ed under the state school board. It's an Agency of Ed under the governor. And so if anybody complains that our 2% increase caused the 5.11, it's because we were mandated to have weighted students. And the weighted students changed that number. I'll get off my high horse now.
Anybody have any more questions?
I wondered, were you gonna say something?
No, it's just
Okay, so
pointing
make
out.
sure I'm not interrupting. I don't know, but I wonder if St. Albans City and St. Albans Town people might be concerned why Fairfield folks are having a decrease. That could be a sticking point for some folks, and if so, maybe we could show information since consolidation, who has stayed the same, who has increased and who's decreased just throughout those years, just so they know that Fairfield had their turn. And now we're just experiencing the other side of it, which is, just the opposite of what it was.
Yeah, it's due to the common level of appraisal and the way.
I know that. I'm saying, I think you were
can
asking
explain it.
for ideas as to how
Yep.
to explain things to
Yep.
folks, and I just think that might be a point of clarification for people, so they understand why one town is getting a decrease and another town is having a significant increase.
Yeah.
So Joanna, when was Fairfield
In the beginning.
reassessed?
Last year, 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
So that's what causes the common level of appraisal to be more accurate.
Right.
And so when it's more accurate, what happens if the common level of house values goes down, the rate has to go up.
Right. But
This
we were
thing
higher.
times this thing equals your tax.
Right.
And so Fairfield, the values went up. The tax rate times that equals their tax. And so their common level of appraisal is more accurate, and that's what caused them to be down.
Right.
When
And
the other towns,
haven't done.
when the city and the town reassess, they'll have, people will still pay a higher tax, but the rate will be a little bit, it'll look better.
Right, and I was just saying that when the consolidation happened, I believe that we were on the increase side, and we have slowly gone down, is all I
Right.
was
Right.
suggesting. Yes, and is it town, I think it's city,
City's in the
Right.
middle of a
Right
reassessment
now.
right now, but it
Yeah.
hasn't been in
A long time.
10 years?
Town and city
11?
both have it. They've
Okay,
done it.
so, but I'm just saying, that's a good
Yeah.
explanation for,
Yep.
a point of clarification for folks,
Yeah.
just to understand why it looks so different.
For city residents, my one of the messages that hopefully can be brought across is that city's next in terms of that reduction. The appraisal is, like, what the numbers we're seeing aren't reflected, the appraisal doesn't factor in because it's still ongoing right now, but next year, the city should be at common level appraisal, I believe, unless I'm mistaken. And so the hope is that, the city, I don't know whether town is discussing a reappraisal or anything like that, but that will work in their favor when they do that.
I mean, it was with Select Board Charlie, the town.
Yeah.
The town select board is like, we know we're getting close to having to redo this. The biggest problem is the number of actually getting it done and finding.
Sure.
to do it.
That's-
Yeah,
there's
it's a
cost
difficult
there,
thing,
too.
that's why city took so long.
Okay, so, are there any members of the community that are in the room or online that have any questions about the budget as it was presented?
Well, I just have one statement, Mark Dooley, Fairfield. I really appreciate your statement about your health insurance went up. Well, all our costs are going up. And I really appreciate everything you board are doing.
Mark, I'm just gonna give you
Sure.
this, sorry, it's hard, in this room, the acoustics aren't great.
Yeah, no problem. So I really appreciate your statement about health costs went up. And I understand.
It went off.
I don't have much to say. I don't have much to say. No, I really appreciate your statement about how your premium went up, our premium went up. Fairfield, my personal property tax has gone up double in the last 4 years.
2 100%.
So I really appreciate what the board's doing. You guys are controlling your costs. I totally get that. It's not a Fairfield, it's not a St. Albans problem. This is a state issue. And this is a state that the state keeps demanding schools to do more with less. And your hands are tied, I totally get that. But to your statement, eventually we gotta say, how do we start cutting costs, not affecting students? Totally get that. Special ed always has been an increased cost, and those special kids, we gotta love them. That's really all I have to say. And I really appreciate everything you guys do, folks, but for you guys, for this board to say a 2% increase, I cheer it. But I think the state's gonna screw it. And I think it's gonna cost even more than the 2% you're increasing. And I think eventually Vermonters, we gotta figure this out, because we're at the point where it's not sustainable. If our kids leave the state, we're out of here. And, we're going where our grandkids go. 7 generations we've been here. But we gotta figure this out. And I do appreciate all the teachers, all the educators. That's all I have to say. Tom
Thank
Embry
you,
might
sir.
be a really good resource for, you're talking about the the few people, children, students, that create some of the issues. For Tom Emery's a Chittenden County guy who deals with special kids.
Yeah, but, thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you again, sir.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay, it's Judy Wynn. Old lady glasses on, 1 second.
You state your name, please.
Sure, I'd be happy to. My name is Laura Walker, and I've been a resident of St. Albans City for the last 15 years. I've witnessed many positive changes in the time that I've lived here. I grew up in Baltimore City, where my mom still happily resides at the age of almost 90. I can't get her to move here. And trust me when I say that Vermont is like a breath of fresh air compared to Baltimore City when I go back. Because, I mean, every place has problems. There's no such thing as a perfect place. But in Baltimore City, it's on a much larger scale. As a child, I grew up with much love and care. But I also lived and witnessed the effects that drug abuse, alcoholism, incarceration, violence, and intergenerational trauma can have on a family. And I don't think that's unlike what we see in many of our kids today in schools. It's the same, but I think it's even more intense since the dawning of the internet, with kids being connected 24/7, with the opioid crisis, with COVID, everything has just been compiled. I was so shy as a child that my mother made me volunteer so that I could get outside of myself and become a more social kid. So I had a bunch of different volunteer experiences, and those actually informed what I ultimately did as an adult. So one of those experiences was when I was in school. I was strongly encouraged by some teachers to start taking some child development courses. So as a result of that, I ended in an early childhood program that placed aspiring educators in different educational settings like daycares, hospitals, elementary schools. So over the last 43 years, I've been a kindergarten teacher, a licensed child care provider when I had my own children, an education support professional here in Vermont for the last 14 years. I work in a neighboring district. I primarily work one-on-one with autistic children. It's been a privilege being a part of each student's life and helping to facilitate their growth. Part of my job as a paraprofessional is also paving the way for the students that I work with, so that the students that they're surrounded by that are considered more neurotypical actually include them, and that they're kind to them and are more engaging. So that's part of my job, not only to assist my student, but to make them see that the student that I work with isn't all that different than they are, because we all have challenges, but some are a lot more unseen, and some are a lot more visible than others. Can we hold that for a second? Sorry. Okay, thank you. So part of my job, and I think all of our jobs as human beings, is to forge a true sense of connection. So I would have to say that I've been humbled over these last 43 years, before I was even a parent, to see the struggles that the students in these families deal with on a daily basis. I consider my job very easy because when I go home at the end of the day, I go home to my family, and my children are now adults. But for parents of students that aren't neurotypical, it's 24/7. It's full on. So I've gone over the proposed budget and possible scenarios. And because I recently had surgery on my hand, I also had the luxury of reading more than the 150 Maple Run employee job descriptions. So that's what I do for fun, in between YouTube videos. Very boring. I'd much rather be in a classroom right now. As a school board, your job is not easy. The task that you have right now is so important. And I know that most important undertakings in life are not easy. So as a member of this community and someone that's in schools almost every day, I'm imploring you not to cut any jobs that directly support students or have to do with the instruction of students. And this would include, but not be exclusive to, like all educators, whether a classroom teacher, a paraeducator, an art or music teacher, a special educator, anyone who interfaces with students on a daily basis. Especially like when I think of UA teachers, there's some kids that they only come to school because they love music or they love art. Like that's really their passion, and that's what sets them on fire, And those programs are sometimes the very first ones to go across our country. I hate to see that start happening here. Sorry. I'm gonna have to pay you after this. Whoops. Oh my goodness. I apologize. Finally, I would say that children today need more support. They need more instructional, behavioral, and emotional supports. And any of us that are in classrooms, this is so obvious to us. I have to say, when I started in 1981, well, first off, I thought that I was all that in a bag of chips, and I didn't have my own kids, and when I had my own children, they were on IEPs, so I was very, very humbled, and I found out, and I've been finding out as I get older, just how much I don't know. I think when you're younger, you have this sense of yourself that it doesn't mirror reality. So I can tell you one thing that will never change is the need for a sense of true connection, and educators provide that on a daily basis. Our mantra should be to leave people better than we found them. Please help us with your thoughtful budget decisions to continue to do this, and I really thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, appreciate it. Any other comments in the room? Or John, anyone online?
No one online, Nilda.
Okay. So I guess that concludes our budget discussion and community forum section. Next item is a visitor section. I think, unless I'm mistaken, we may have covered that just now. John, is that correct? There's no one that is here for something other than budget?
Well, I posted the general visitors announcement in the chat, and I haven't heard from anyone, Nilda.
Okay, all right, thank you all. I am going to move on. All right, so we're gonna go to the consent agenda. There is approval of minutes, media packet, and donation. And is there anyone that wishes to pull something up for discussion specifically? Seeing none, hearing none, the consent agenda is accepted without objection. Reports to the board, student board representative report. Do we have a student here?
We do not, Nilda. I think it's because they have midterms, right, Polly?
Pardon me?
Do they have midterms coming?
Yes, the kids, yeah.
The kids have midterms, so they're probably worrying about that, which they should.
Exactly.
Okay. So old business, we already went over that, and we'll be taking action at the next meeting. New business, we have a request for unpaid leave. You have it in your packet as attachment 9A. And I'm looking for a motion to approve that for discussion, please.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second. Mary Ann?
Thank you. Phil, any info regarding this besides what we have in our letter?
She has exhausted all leave. From talking with Becky today, she's used more than her allotted leave.
Okay. So there's no recommendation for administration regarding this request. Anybody have any questions, or are we ready to take a vote?
I have a question.
Yes.
It's a request for 10 days of unpaid leave. Do we know when that leave will start? Will it be immediate, or?
She would need it immediately because she's in negative balance at this point. She's been given 5 days as per the contract from her administrator.
Okay. Any other questions? Are we ready to take a vote? Okay. All those in favor of motion to approve the unpaid leave for Brittany Bard? I'm going to take a vote here. Amanda?
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes.
Nakuma,
Yes.
Jack,
No.
Jessica,
Yes.
Joanna, oh, sorry. No, you were in your seat because I can't see you.
Sorry.
Okay, there you are.
Yeah, just give me a
Joanna?
moment. Keep going.
Oh, okay, Carly,
No.
Oh,
Mary Ann,
Yes.
Suzanne,
Yes.
Nilda votes no. Joanna, this is the unpaid leave request that we're on. There's no recommendation from the administration regarding this request.
Okay.
You ready?
Vote, yeah, I vote no.
Okay, so I'm hearing 1, 2, 3, 4 no's and 4, 5, 6 yeses. Is that right?
Did you get the half votes there, Nilda? I think it's
So
split.
it's 5.5, 3.5.
Yeah, I think it's 5.5, 3.5, what I got.
5.5, 3.5. Okay, so the motion does carry. And she's granted her unpaid leave. At some point, Bill, it might be advantageous for the board to understand the impact of unpaid leaves, you know, and what the steps have to be taken at the school to cover the leaves, et cetera.
So I'm gonna put, if we have time in the next agenda, we'll bring some of that. Becky's been doing a good, really nice analysis with many of our colleagues in the building of what's happening with unpaid leave. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Next item is new business B, and it's tuition rates, and you have it in attachment 9B, but I think Bree is gonna review this with us. But I need a motion for discussion to set the FY26 annual tuition rate for MRUSD non-resident students as follows. Kindergarten through 6, 18,000, grade 7 through 12, 21,000, and tech center, 14,000. Can I have that motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion, Bree? Can you give us any more
Absolutely.
info?
Absolutely. So after the FY24 final numbers came through, I am recommending that we increase the tuition, the announced tuition rates for each of these categories. We have to have this approved and sent into the Agency of Education by January 15th of every single year, announcing what our tuition rates are. And if we don't approve the tuition tonight, then we would have to do it by the next board meeting, or it would be set at the current year rate that we're currently at. So looking at the elementary tuition, we were going from 14,500 to 18,000. Currently, we do not have any students K through 6 coming from an outside school district into our school district. But looking at the FY24 final numbers, the allowable tuition that we could have charged was $18,173. So having it just a little bit under to 18,000 I thought was reasonable. And then 7 through 12, we are increasing it from 18,300 to 21,000. The FY24 allowable tuition rate that we could have charged was $21,031. So again, we're a little bit under. And at the end of the year, we can do we can bill back the difference between, we can bill back the difference between 3% and 10% of the tuition if need be, if we find at the end of FY25 is higher than what we're currently charging. And then NCTC, the FY25 tuition rate was 13,900, and I'm recommending to increase it to 14,000. The tech center, their tuition rate was $13,447. That was allowable. But with this year's budget also and us not increasing, or with us increasing and not cutting in the tech center, my recommendation is to increase it to the 14,000.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do we have, did you state how many students were involved in the grade, 7 through 12 right now?
I don't have that number. I know it was presented, I believe, in the last board meeting.
Okay,
Yes, so.
all right, thank you. Any questions for Bree?
Bree, I apologize.
Yeah.
Are you able to just clarify again, the justification for 18.3 to 21 for 7 to 12?
Yes, so going, at the end of FY '24, the allowable tuition for FY '24 could have been $21,031 that we could charge. So we actually did go back to the sending schools and we sent them invoices for the difference of tuition, because we were only charging in FY '24 $18,000 for tuition. So it's the difference between the 3% and up to 10% of what we could charge. So, yeah. Yes. Okay. You're welcome.
Okay, we ready to take a vote? Amanda,
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes.
Nakuma,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Joanna,
Yes.
Carly,
Yes.
Marianne,
Yes.
Suzanne,
Yes.
Nelda votes yes, motion carries. Next item is FY '26 high school choice number. I need a motion to set the fiscal year 2026 high school choice number as 30 students going out and 35 students coming in. May I have a motion for that, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Bill, can you give us a little background on this, please?
Yes, about 12, 15 years ago, Vermont set up a high school choice, which is different than tuitioning. What Bree just talked to you is about students that might come from Sheldon or Georgia or Alburgh. We have Bakersfield as well, we have a couple others from other towns that come to BFA and their district pays tuition. This is different. This is the kids that can choose, that are residents of, that have a high school that's designated for their education, such as if they lived in our 3 towns and they wanted to go to MBU or Essex or South Burlington, they could go out and they could get into a lottery system to be chosen to be able to go into that school. Conversely, we have students that come here that might be in Enosburg or live in Swanton or live in Milton, and they want to come to BFA. So by statute, once you're above a certain population, it caps out that you have either a certain percentage, or where you get to a certain student population, you have to allow at least 10 students per grade to choose to go out. So we always set that at 40, which is our minimum number. We have done that for years. We have very few students going out. I forgot to check the actual number going out in school choice, but I want to say it's under 10. I did check what's coming in. The past couple of years, I think 3 years ago, we upped it from 32 students to 35 students. The board chose to do that. We've had 3 to 8 kids the past 3 years on wait list to come into BFA, but the money does not follow the child. So if a child comes in from Swanton, a school that has a designated high school, and they come in under school choice, we don't get the ADM money for that. Just as we have a couple kids that are going to Enosburg High School that live in East Fairfield, or in Fairfield area, I should say. But those ADM dollars that you saw in the long-term weighted aid, that stays with us. That doesn't go to Enosburg. So we have, as I said, we have a lot more kids that come into BFA than go out of BFA. And the money does not follow. So this is something that you have to set here in January by statute. We've always done it at this meeting, and Teresa Talon runs the school choice lottery for us and does an excellent job of doing that. It's quite a task.
Thanks, Bill. Any questions for Bill? Ready to vote? Okay, this is to approve the
Wait,
high school.
Just say-
Wait, there's a question.
Zelda.
Jordan has a question.
Hold on, we have a question.
Sorry, thank you, Jack, I heard ya.
Oh, it's
Go ahead, go ahead,
Joanna, it's Joanna.
Okay, go ahead.
So, the money doesn't follow them from the state. Does the tuition money?
No.
Okay, so the tuition doesn't
No
either.
money.
And so of these 35 students that are coming to our school, are they part of the 120 who are getting 4 or
Oh.
more?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm glad I don't know right now, but we can't, we have to, when we do the school choice lottery, it's a total blind, it's a total
Mhm.
non-knowing lottery
Right.
about what the student attributes are. So,
But we still are deciding to bring in people without receiving any extra money.
right.
So is that financially possible for us to continue to do that
Yeah.
without looking at?
I haven't looked into it. I just haven't looked into it. Because we've been doing this traditionally, so sorry, it's a place I could go and look into. How much is it? It's across all 4 grades at the high school. But I remember looking at the list, it primarily seems to happen a lot in sophomore year and junior years. When kids come in, mainly sophomore. There are some freshmen, there are some seniors. And so when you add, I'd have to look and see, like, is there a clump and is it adding to, I don't think it's making, because you take 35 students across 4 years, I don't know that that's creating any extra sections of classes, but it's adding to class load.
Thanks, Bill. Any other questions?
To piggyback on that, Bill, you're saying that we're mandated to have 10 slots, aren't we?
We're mandated for 10 per grade, so that gives us our 40 that we have to allow out. Or we can have more than 40.
Do we have a mandate to allow in? Because
We do have a mandate to allow in, we're above that. I'd have to go, I didn't bring that number, because frankly, in the past couple of years, we haven't had much discussion on it, so I didn't do a lot of background work, I'd have to go get that.
the right thing is like, I feel like it's mutually beneficial for us to work together as a community. If our kids want to go out, our kids want to come in. If it's a better fit for the child, it kind of evens out because some of our kids have gone out.
Right.
And we're not, their money's not following them, but we're getting money for them, vice versa, right? So
Right, we have about, I will go get you the numbers next time, and I'd be glad, whatever you do with this motion, I'll bring back the actual numbers. I don't think we have more than 10 going out. We allowed 35 the previous years, and we always have a wait list of somewhere to 3 to 8 kids who want to come in. So we're gaining more in than we're going out. You
Okay.
have the numbers? Bree has the numbers.
So we have 14 students who are going out. We had 5 students who were on the wait list for this year who did not get in. And then do you want how many students per grade?
No, I think we have the 35.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Bree, for looking that up.
Thank you for doing that. Okay, ready to vote? Amanda,
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes.
Nakuma,
yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Joanna,
Yes.
Carly,
Yes.
Mary Ann, Suzanne,
Yes.
Yelda votes yes, motion carries. Next item is, we have just set a date for the budget information session. So the budget vote is March 4th, and we're required to have this budget information meeting 10 days preceding town meeting day. So our choices are February 24th to 28th or March 3rd. In the past, we've held it on the Wednesday. It's always vacation week. That's just the way it works for town meeting in Vermont. So I would recommend we stick to our usual plan of doing a Wednesday, February 26th. at 6 o'clock in the boardroom. Could I have I'll make that motion, actually. I move that we have the budget informational meeting on February 26, 2025 at 6 p.m. in the boardroom at Catherine Street. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion? Hearing none, I'm gonna take a vote. Amanda?
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes.
Nakuma?
Yes. Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Joanna?
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes.
Mary Ann?
Yep.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Nilda votes yes. Majority approves. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Draft warning. That is in there for our information. It's good to read it and see if you can find the one typographical error that we've missed yet again or something, because it seems like we often have some double letter or something. It kind of cracks me up because so many eyes look at it and then something slides through that we correct at this meeting. But I don't think that's the case this time. Next item is board elections. The information I know is that we have 3 members whose term is expiring in 2025. That's Charlie from the city, Joanna from Fairfield, and Nakuma from town. Hopefully they're all getting signatures on their petitions to rerun. That's the information I wanted to share. Does anyone have any questions? Anyone want to disclose their intention?
I mean, I've got my clipboard here, so I'm,
It's here.
yeah, I went and ran around and collected signatures before we started, so.
Okay, thank you. Joanna?
I have not made a decision yet.
You haven't made a decision yet? Well, get going, girl, because you gotta do this by the end of January.
I got plenty of
I'm
time.
happy to sign your petition
Thank you.
anytime I see you. Nakuma?
I plan on running again.
Pardon me?
Yes, I plan on running again.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all of you running. Or thinking about it. Okay, next item is the FY25 quarterly financial report. It's a status report that Bree's gonna review with us, and we have it in our packet as attachment 9G.
Yes.
Bree?
Yes. So in 9G, so this will look very similar to what you have been seeing from me for the last couple of meetings. But in here, we have the FY25 working budget and the FY25 actual and encumbered expenses as of December 16th, 2024. A couple of areas to show that we haven't spent or encumbered all of the working budget. This is also a really good thing because we're only halfway through the year. But in direct instruction, we have around 1.5 million remaining. Extracurricular and co-curricular, we have around 500,000 remaining, but we aren't encumbering yet the spring coaches because we don't have all of their paperwork into the system yet. So the payroll system or the payroll software system can't encumber the funds until we have all documentation. In the guidance and support services, there's around 350,000 remaining in those lines. And then student transportation, there's about $646,000 remaining in that line. But again, there's probably quite a few field trips that haven't been encumbered and extra transportation bills that have come up or that will come up throughout the year. All of this also is just regular education. If we switch over to the next page, special education, you'll see that the direct instruction still has a remaining balance of about $392,000. But then looking at the student supports, we are over budget. by almost $500,000 for those costs that we have. The out-of-district placement is also up, and I know that it's up even more since then because we did have another contract come in since this December 16th run that I had pulled. So looking at the bottom line, we have about 3% remaining in the budget, which equates to $2.3 million remaining for the rest of this year. So looking at that, we are looking to be in a good position.
Thanks, Bree. Questions for Bree? I'm hearing none, so I'm gonna move on. Thank you. We're on agenda items 10, other business. First one is warrants. I need a motion, please, to approve the warrants, acknowledging that passage of this motion will act as authorization and signature of any individual board member participating remotely. May I have that motion, please?
I'll make the motion to confirm.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? All right, let's take our vote. Amanda?
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes.
Nakuma?
Yes.
Jack?
He said,
Oh, he's not here. Okay.
He said yes from across the road.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
There's snacks.
Jessica?
Yes.
Joanna?
Yes.
Carly?
Yes.
Mary Ann?
Yes.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Hilda votes yes. Motion carries. Next item is the superintendent's report. Take it away, Bill.
oh yes, okay. First off, if you haven't been up to Collins Pearly, it started our annual art show that's up there. It's a great exhibit. Started yesterday and goes through the end of the week. So get a chance to get up there, some great work. As I said earlier during the budget presentations, as of today, we've been to talked to all the staff about what's going on in the budget. We're trying to keep them involved, and they're giving great suggestions and great discussions. And I've had presentations with Rotary. Marianne, you joined me for that, and Jack, you helped put together the one on Monday night. And next Monday, I'll be at Fairfield Select Board on the 13th. So because of being with the Fairfield Select Board, like it was last month when we were at Town Select Board, we won't be having an education session. I'll be up there. And then just wanted to remind you, because of the calendar, we decided to have the board meeting on tonight instead of the 1st of January. So it means next Wednesday night we'll have our next board meeting. So it's 2 weeks in a row. And we'll be at BFA, I believe, is what, right?
No, it's gonna be here.
So we're gonna try.
It's gonna be at Central,
Yeah, I know
what do you call it? Boardroom.
So that's one of the things, Nilda, that you and I talked about, is doing the boardroom. I had forgotten that we have it scheduled. We could move it to the boardroom, but we have it scheduled for BFA. Would you like to move it, or?
I would. Is there any objection from the board?
Central office fine? Okay, well, we
No.
can,
No objections that I'm seeing.
okay.
Well, I mean,
Thank you. Thank you, I appreciate that. Anything else?
Yeah, I do,
Superintendent?
yeah, the other one, I left the probably the one that needs the most attention to last. Or actually, let me say a couple things. Besides the art show, there's, SATEC is having on Thursday a 7th, 8th grade fine arts and concert, and Fairfield's having their concert on the 22nd. And so there's some great things to go to, and I'll make sure I forward you this email that Aaron had put together, some great things to go see. On Friday, Governor Scott sent a letter to the legislatures, talking to him about his scheduled plan, and we put this in the packet late today, his scheduled plan to start educating the legislature about restructuring public education. And so he has asked the committees of House Ed, Senate Ed, House Ways and Means, and Senate Finance to come together and hear testimony, led a lot by by Secretary of Education Zoe Sanders, but then there's other folks or outside consultants coming in, at looking not only at funding, but what did they learn, their listening and learn findings, what's the state profile data look like, how is it currently funded, what it would look like with a foundation funding system, and looking at governance changes, and also looking at other pathways for learning and education. It's about a 5-page letter that I would urge you to read, so you know what's happening at the legislative level, but this is it's starting right off the bat. I mean, it's starting next week. And there's gonna be it's probably gonna be the leading piece of work at the legislature this year. As we've all heard in the press, so I just urge you to pay attention. VSBA is doing a good job of getting out information as well in their weekly updates. But I really wanted to point you to this letter that was sent to all the legislatures, that there's going to be, they're making it, I think it's going to be front and center, and I'm sure it'll be the front and center of the news cycles as well. So I think it behooves us to stay on top of it. And I'll try to keep you as informed as I can as I come up on new information, as what's happening. As always, all these things, I'm not sure I'd want to sit and watch all the testimony because there'll be long sessions, but they do put these up on the YouTube websites for the state legislature. Yeah, it could be a good nighttime watching. But I think that it's important for us to stay really informed of what's going on, and then work with our local legislators, so what our reactions are to that. So.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's all I have, Nilda.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Bill? Next item is item 10C, board announcements. Any announcements from the board? I have one thing. No one has anything. I received communication from an individual today named Bruce Chesman, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, and I apologize for that, indicating he's interested in running for school board for the St. Albans town. He was going to come to tonight's meeting but has a previous engagement. So I'm just telling you that because otherwise I would have to share the whole email. I chose to do it this way. I think he left a voice message actually, because it's one of those fuzzy things in the message thing. So I'll just direct him to the St. Albans Town Clerk. And that's all I have for board announcements. Plan for board observations. We probably haven't had too many since the last meeting because we had the holiday period. Board reflections.
I went to the art show today, and it was fabulous.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it was, my mother was an art teacher in Essex School District for 20-plus years, so I appreciate art by students. And I just have to say that the pottery was so much better than what my kids brought home.
It's great. Here.
But they
I
had
don't know if you.
one of the things that all the students probably did was an eye. Single eyes creep me out. So it was really interesting to see the same thing done by different students and the variety, and we got good students. So it was encouraging to see. And a lot of people going in and out of Collins Pearly were looking at them too, so it was a good event.
If you haven't already, please fill out one of those forms.
Okay.
Those observation forms. Any other board reflections? Items for future meetings, we have new staff budget, questions around budget. We don't need an executive session. Is there any more business to come before the board? Hearing none, I'd like to thank you all for your service in 2024 and your attention to this budget information. It's great to see. Meeting is adjourned and it's 7 36-ish.